Good morning, virtual villagers. I didn't realise we'd gone live then. Very sorry. How are you this morning? I have to say, if it's a little bit dark, I apologise because it's very, very, very sunny here this morning. So I've had to close the curtains. I'm just going to try and get you up so I can see all your responses. Just give me one sec. Okay, there we are. I can see all your responses now. So give me a wave, say hi. So this is quite timely this morning because, sorry, I'm sewing while I'm talking to you. It has come out very cold this morning, and because it's bright and sunny. So these things are suddenly very relevant today. What we're going to make today are draft excluders, which I have all over the house because we have a very drafty house. And we're going to make some heated pads that you can heat in the microwave for your pockets so that you can keep your hands warm when you're out for a walk, which is another thing I do because I'm walking the dog at the moment. Okay, so let me show you what we're going to make. So my draft excluder, this is my draft excluder from downstairs. It is covered in a bit of fluff now, but it's most doors me and my husband have been researching drafts. As I say, we've got a very drafty house. We're insulated as far as we can with double glazed in and walls and roofs and everything, but part of the house is quite old and there's a lot of drafts in it. So we were looking at things to exclude drafts, and we saw draft excluders for sale on the internet that were really good ideas, but I wasn't paying that price when I can make it myself from virtually everything I've got in the house. So this was the draft excluder we're using downstairs. The only thing that I'm going to try and alter with it is one of the things we saw, various draft excluders fastening to the back of your door with a bit of stick and sew Velcro, which means that when you're opening the door and then closing the door again, it's dragging the draft excluder with it. So you're not constantly kicking it back in front of the door, which I thought was a great idea. So that's my draft excluder from downstairs. The other thing we're going to be making are these little microwaveable heat pads. So these are the pocket ones. These are made with a bit of flannel from an old flannel shirt. I sewed these on the machine, but you don't have to, you can hand sew them. And I just cut the edges with, I don't know whether you can see that, with pinking shears to give it a bit of a decorative edge. Inside there's a little bag of rice. You could use oats or wheat if you wanted to, but I've got rice in the house and I haven't got the other things. And the bag that it's in is part of an old pair of tights, and it's quite important to put it in a bag because what you don't want is a seam coming loose and the rice going everywhere. Plus, it's quite hard to stitch on the machine if the rice is loose inside it. The grains get under the needle and break your needle. So there's two there, so that's one for each pocket. 30 seconds in the microwave, and they're toasty warm, and they stay warm for about 30 minutes, which is really quite good. Now, they're the pocket ones. There's also another version, but I'm not going to show you this today. I'll just show you what it looks like. Last year, I made everybody in my family one of these to Christmas. This is the foot warmer. It's bigger, obviously. It's a big rectangle of, again, flannel fabric from an old shirt, but it's in sections. And I've added a bit of ribbon so it can be rolled up and tied. But these are brilliant in place of a hot water bottle. Again, in the microwave, they're filled with rice. You put them in the microwave, about a minute because there's more rice in these. I sit at night. This is very sad because I won't let my husband have the heating on high. I have a fleecy blanket around my legs and tucked under my feet with this inside it, and my feet are on this. And then my blanket comes up around here and I'm toasty warm. And the other thing these are good for, particularly for me at the moment, because I have a really bad shoulder, is you can warm them. And because of the sections and the way they will very easily fit on my sore shoulder. I know you can get these, you can buy them commercially, wheat packs, but I find the shape of this with the sections makes it sit, and I can walk around and it's still sitting. So that's the foot and neck warmer. But we're not going to make that today. We're just going to do the hand warmers. Okay, so saying that, I think we'll start with the hand warmers. I'm just going to pop that outside. So what you need for your hand warmers is some fabric. Now, if you're not a sewer, you can go for a fabric that won't fray, so something like t-shirt material. So this is the one I started, I was sewing when I came on air. I'm sewing it by hand. I'm not a good hand sewer, so forgive the messiness, with a back stitch. Okay, so what I've done here is I've made myself little templates for the size of these because I make a lot of these things, so it's easier with a template. So it's a 4.5-inch square. But what I did with this one, because it was a bigger piece of fabric, I've actually just folded it in half and then cut out the square. So that's one less seam you have to stitch. Okay, so that's your fabric. If you are a sewing machine sewer, you can use any fabric you like. I like flannel or fleece, just because they've got that cozy feel. This is t-shirt material. It's actually out of a pair of pajama bottoms. Everything I'm using today, bar the needles and threads, is recycled from somewhere. I mean, the rice isn't recycled, but it's a cheap item you have in the house. Okay, so the padding, the inside of your heat pad is, let me just pop you down a little bit and you can see what I'm doing with that. The inside is a piece of old type. I find this is the best thing to do. I use this a lot for making rice, little rice bags, which I use. If I make toys, I always put a little bag of rice in the bottom of them so they sit properly and they don't wobble about. Anyway, that's by the way. So what you need to do is cut a piece about about 5 inches. The advantage of using tights is that the mesh is very, very fine and the rice won't slip out. And you can stretch it. You don't have to sew it. Just tie a knot in the end. And it takes about half a cup of rice. Is about right. So I've got my little half cup here. And I'm going to put my rice in it. Half a cup, I should say, is about right for both the 2 hand warmers. Okay. That's the rice. The other nice thing you can do, if you want, is add a bit of essential oil to it. Now, I've chosen peppermint because I think that's a nice kind of wintry, cheerful smell. So to mix it in, you only need 1 or 2 drops of the essential oil. My room smells like peppermint because I was practicing this yesterday. So you can use lavender as well. That's because something that's quite soothing, chamomile maybe. I'm going to put 5 drops in because that's more than enough. The rice actually absorbs the essential oil and keeps the scent for quite a while. Give it a good stir, and you'll be surprised how quickly that tiny bit of oil starts to coat your rice. You can see it's starting to coat it already. So that, as I said, is enough for 2. Plenty enough for two of your hand warmers. So I'm just going to tip half of it back in the cup because that makes it a little bit easier to measure and to get into the stocking bit. So you open up your little stocking bag, and I always do it like this because otherwise you end up with rice all over the floor, which then goes in your Hoover, which then makes your husband angry. in my experience. So I'm going to just pull all the bits at the top because I want to make sure I get all the bits of the open bit of the tights in my knot. So I leave it loose, tie the knot right at the end so that your rice has room to spread out flat inside your bag. So tie your knot and pull it right to the end of your stocking bit. Like that. And then that's your rice bag. Can you see that? It spreads out quite flat, so it's going to fit inside your little bag. Now, I started sewing this before I came on air, and I ran out of thread, so excuse me, but I'm going to use black now. So the best I always use the doubled thread, so it's nice and strong, and a neat back stitch. Mine isn't neat, I have to say. So with this one, as I said before, one side is all, I'm not going to sew, don't worry, all afternoon. One side's already fastened, so I'm just going to quickly run a running stitch up this, just because running stitch is not ideal, but if it's all you can do, then it will hold it together. If you make them quite small, not like me. But I'm just doing this for quick. I would recommend a back stitch if you're doing it. And again, you can see on this one, I've cut the edges with the pinking shears, so it gives it a bit of decoration. If you can embroider, you can use embroidery thread and maybe make a bit of a fancy stitch around it. So maybe just quickly run and stitch it together and then put maybe a chain stitch or something decorative. Just pop your bag of smelly rice in your little pocket, and then you simply just stitch up the other side, the open end. As I say, with this one, it's a little bit, it's going to be a little bit rough and ready because it takes quite a while to sew it. The ones that I showed you earlier, the plaid ones, I sewed them on the machine. I'm not a good hand sewer because I've got a machine and it's much easier. So I'm a bit of a lazy sewer. Now, I'm just looking at the clock, and although I did a bit of prep earlier, cutting out and sewing one side, I reckon you could make a pair of these hand warmers in about 30 minutes. Great stocking fillers. As I say, the foot warmers, everybody in my family got one last year. And the race. I love mine. And particularly now when, as I said to you before, I've cut my heating right back. I've got my thermostat set at 18 degrees now, whereas it used to be 22. So hopefully that'll save me a lot of money this year. Now I've quickly stitched that, just very quickly and very roughly. So what you then do is give it a bit of a shake about to get your rice distributed evenly. And there you go. If you excuse my stitching, you can see that that's worked in. It's just right for fitting in your hands in your pocket. So 30 seconds for the pair of them in the microwave. There's my little white thread. As I say, longer if you've got, I would say about 15 seconds per hand warmer. So with the microwave, obviously, you add it up. So that would be 30 seconds for the two. I would do a minute for the big foot-shaped one. Simple as. You could put a button in the middle. You could stitch, embroider a little flower if you embroider. I would recommend you do any embroidery or that, or even if you can iron on, like use Bondi web to iron on a heart or something. I would do it before you stitch it together. This one as well, I don't know whether you can see, there's a white layer in between. Now that is iron-on interfacing. If you were going to sew this by hand, you might get some fraying, and the interfacing just stops it fraying. So basically, I'll show you it. It's like this. It's a fabric. One side is soft, and the other side's got glue on it, and so it's rough. So you place that onto your fabric, glue side down, iron it on, and then cut it out. And that's quite good for cutting out shapes that you maybe don't want to fray around the edges. So that's the interfacing. So that's one way of, with your nose. I mean, t-shirt fabric's fine because it doesn't fray. Fleece is great because it doesn't fray. But any other sort of fabric will probably fray. Part of its decoration could be the fraying, but as I say, that's one way to stop it fraying. And it's a shame you can't smell it, because the peppermint's really nice. So those are the hand warmers, and I hope you have a go at them, and I hope you reuse lots of stuff that's in the house and don't go out and buy for it, because that's the whole point. The whole point of these things is to keep you warm and save you money. So let's go on to the Draught excluder, because again, this is very simple. There are no sew methods to do this as well. So if you're not a sewer, don't worry about it. So I showed you mine earlier. What I'm going to show you now is what they're stuffed with, or can be stuffed with. Now, I use a lot of tights in my house. Sometimes I buy tights just to use, but I try not to do that. The other thing is I always put my finger through them, so I've got lots of tights with runs in. So this is the leg of the tights. It's long. As I said before, when me and my husband were researching Draught excluders, standard doors are between 70 and 80 centimetres wide. So you need about a metre for your Draught excluder. And this is stuffed with odds and ends of fabric and wool and felt. And you'll have seen, I think if you watch me before, you'll see when I cut things out of fabric, I keep all the little bits. And this is what I do with them. I stuff things with them. So this is a Draught excluder, basically made of rubbish. So that's the inner. Now, the other thing I've got, for a while, my husband and I were getting recipe boxes through the post, and anything that needs to be kept cold comes wrapped in a sort of fleece padding, and it is recycled, so it's already been recycled. But me being me, I've kept it. I've got a huge bag full of it now. But for a draft excluder, it's perfect. Now, I know you can't see the whole draft excluder, but that is the fleecy fabric. It's about 1/2 inch thick, quite dense, so drafts won't get through it. And all I've done is rolled it and tied it with string. So I've now got a draft excluder. This is quite stiff. The stuffed tights are quite floppy. This is quite stiff, but it works really well. And for my cover on this one, I got this fleece blanket. This is a baby size fleece blanket, and it was perfect for 2. It's got sheep on it. You know, any sort of fleece. You could use fleece blanket. You could use a fleece from a jacket. The sleeves are really good out of fleece jackets. It might be a little bit short for a draft excluder, but you can always, you can always piece 2 pieces together to make it the right length. I'm making mine about 1 meter long, which is what I said before. So that's the fabric I'm going to use. Now, the first method I'm going to show you is the no-sew method. So I have already cut this in half, this blanket in half. You want it wrong side, right side down, and I'm going to use the this stuffing in it. And as you can see, quite by coincidence, it's just exactly the right. We can't because it's gone off camera. I'll show you the end. It's exactly the right length. Move those out. So the no-sew method is really simple. I say no-sew. You can sew it. This is the end of the. All my scissors and everything are in the way now. I don't usually spread out this far. This end has already got a seam on it because that was the edge of the blanket. So that's going to be on the outside. As I say, fleece doesn't fray. If it's got quite a pile on it like this, you might get some bits of fluff. My whole room is now covered in fluff. So I'm going to centre my stuffing so that I've got about 1 inch on either side. And then I'm simply going to tuck in the raw edge and roll over the seamed edge. Now I'm just going to pin this. So you want to get a little bit, about 1 inch overlap. I'm going to pin it in place just so that I'm not always going back and rolling it back again. You can pull it quite tight. You want to have quite a good, you want your stuffing to be quite squashed. Not so tight if you're using the tights method because it's much more squashy. This is quite firm. What you don't want to do is squash it too thin. So I'm going to pin this all along. Now, as a no-sew method, you can glue it using a hot glue gun. I didn't do that. I thought I could do that with the hand warmers as well, but then I remembered if you put them in the microwave, probably not best. Probably your glue would melt. So I'll get right to the end. I'm not going to glue this now because I'm just going to show you what to do with the ends. And there is another way. I was going to show you another way. So that's it all pinned along. You could either glue it under the edge or you could just quickly sew it up with a whip stitch. Now the ends, if you are gluing and you don't want to sew, you can gather them together just like that. Maybe use a bit of string or a ribbon. Ribbon will be nice. Or you could just whip round it with some sewing thread. That's quite attractive. The other thing you can do if you are doing a bit of sewing is just fold it in. One of the advantages of fleece is that it does stretch a bit. So you could sew it in like that and then sew it. I found that needle with the white thread. So you would just go around this. My thread's got a bit knotted, but bear with me. What I tend to do is double mine over and put a little loop on the end so that I can anchor it firmly. Now, just let me fiddle around with this and get it in a place where I can actually see it and you can actually, well, I can sew and you can actually see me sewing. So that's my thread there, and I'm going to fold in that, and then kind of just gather it round, sewing through the folds. If we make them nice and neat, we can sew through them like that, and then fold that over again. So you're getting a kind of gathered effect. and it's nice and secure. And then the last one, pull the last one there, and we'll just hook that off. Very simple, simple and easy. That's what we want. Now, if you have a fleece blanket lying around and you don't want to use it, or you change your colour scheme like we do, don't throw it away, just reuse it like that. The other tip, as I said, we saw quite a few on the internet that had stick and sew Velcro. So the stick one you put on the back of your door, and the other half you sew onto your fabric. Again, I would recommend you do it before you start folding it up. And if you do it just behind the fold there, the seam bit, you know it's not going to be inside, end up being inside your roll. And then you can stick that to your door. So you stick the Velcro on this side to the Velcro on your door, and then when you're opening and shutting the door, it moves with the door. It's not getting, in a corner tucked away somewhere. So that is my fleece one, basic, no sew or minimal sew. With the other half of this fleece, I sewed it on the sewing machine. So I'm basically made a long tube, just folded it in half and ran a seam all the way down the long end and across one of the short ends. So this at the moment is inside out, and I left that end open so I can get my stuffing in. And I ummed and ahed about how to get these inside. And if you're rolling them over like the one we did previous, dead easy. But they're quite floppy, these. They're not easy to feed into things. So I thought, oh, leave it inside out and then just roll it over, turn it right side out by rolling it over your sausage. So this is I haven't actually tried this yet. So I've grabbed my sausage in the end, and I'm going to just pull this fleece, turn it right side out over my sausage. So basically, like you would do if you were feeding a ribbon through a channel or anything, or making a rouleau loop if you're very technically minded sewer, or you watch Sewing Bee. You can see you just keep tugging till it comes all the way down to the other end. So I'm about halfway there now. I'm just going to pull that down and pull that through. And as you can see, it's worked really well. That's gone inside. My casing is probably a little bit big for this. This is a narrower tube, the stuffed one, than the recycled fleece one. And then you would simply sew at the end, possibly because that end is square. I would sew this end square as well. So I would just sew across the mouth there. Either on your machine, there's plenty of room for it to go through the machine, or by hand. If you were sewing it on the machine, I would be tempted, because I'm a bit like, I like things to be symmetrical. I would over sew this end as well, so that it looked the same on both ends. I'm a bit sad like that. Right, so that are the two methods of making your draft excluders. I'm going to talk a little bit now about materials, because as I said, I really like to recycle. And these products that I've made and shown you today, as I said, the only thing I bought that isn't recycled is thread, needle and thread, and possibly glue. It's really an easy way to do it. It's eco-friendly in many ways, in the fact that you're not using as much heat, in fact that everything you're using is recycled. You know, it's the no-brainer. It really is. So fabrics. I showed you t-shirt material before, that doesn't fray. The plaid, because I'm planning to make more of these, I picked up a couple of plaid shirts at a charity shop. So I did buy them, but not, not out, not brand new. There is a little bit of the sleeve. This is the sleeve. I've cut the sleeve out, and as you can see, the shape of it's wider at one end than the other. I love plaid because you can cut it out without having to. You get it really square because it's got lines on it already. So what I would do with this one is I will look. Can I show you that? I'll look at the edge here of the. This is the hemmed edge. and then I will cut it all the way along from there, so I'll get a straight line. Now, if you're making the hand warmers out of it, you'll get a lot out of this sleeve. If you're making a draft excluder, you will need both sleeves. So I've cut that wedge off. I'll keep that for other things. And now I've got a straight tube. It's not quite straight at this end. So I'll do the same there, following the lines of the plaid, make it nice and easy. Now, if you wanted this to be a draft excluder, and I'm going to make this into a draft excluder myself, because my living room has a bit of a tartan theme going on, you do the same. We've cut that one sleeve. We'll do the same with the other sleeve. Because it's both sleeves off the same shirt, we know they'll be the same size, almost. So again, following the lines on the plaid. My scissors need sharpening. These are my good fabric scissors, and they've got a bit blunt. I suspect somebody else has been using them in the house. Now, those bits I can either reuse for another job, or I can use them for stuffing. So I'll just cut this end up again, make it level. Now, if you're doing this, you will probably need the sewing machine, because what you've got now is, with the two sleeves, you've got a long enough piece to make a draft excluder. So I would seam them, excuse me, I would seam it there. The other nice thing about plaid is you don't have a wrong side and a right side usually. So what I will do is seam it there at the ends and make a longer piece of fabric that I can then fold in half and put around my whatever inside bit I choose to use. This you could also sort of make, if you use a sewing machine and you know how to do a French seam, you can make the join a bit of a feature. When you're using these shirts, quite often, let me show you another one. I've got a couple here. They've got pockets. This one doesn't have a pocket on. But it has got an initial on. If you've got pockets on, you make the pockets a feature of your draft excluder. Not that I think you'd want to put pockets on a draft excluder, but you never know. So that's the one. When I've finished here with you, I'm going to make that into a draft excluder for my living room. Okay. So other fabrics, these are jeans. These are actually like jeggings. So, and the cord, they're not jean material. I recycle a lot of jeans. I use a lot of denim fabric in fact, everybody gives me jeans now. I went out for a night out the other week and somebody said, "Oh, I've got a pair of jeans for you." I don't know what that says about me. Now, these are an old pair, and I have got bleach on them a little bit. So what I would do is cut the leg off right at the top there. You can see I've already cut one leg out of it. Here's one I made earlier. I would cut it right across the seam in a straight line there. But as you can see, the legs, again, like the sleeves, have got that taper to them. So what I did was I sewed it on the machine from where it starts to taper. I just sewed a straight line right to the end. Now this is a little bit short because I'm short. If you use men's jeans, that you can get them long enough to fit your whole door. But that, I mean, it'll still do its job. So I sewed up the end, like I showed you before. And then when I've stuffed it, I'll just slip stitch the other end. So that is jeans. I mean, everybody, you know, when you've got elasticated jeans or with some sort of stretch in them, after about, if they're cheap like mine, after about 6 or 8 washes, they start to just give a little bit. And after 6 months or so, they're really quite baggy. And you think, oh, well, but don't throw them away. Recycle them into draft excluders. One more little thing, talking about recycling the jeans. The top half of your jeans, with the pockets on and the waistband, make a lovely cushion. I've got one here I'm going to show you that I made a while back. If I can find it. Here we go. All I did was seam along the bottom where the legs were, seam along the top, the waistband. It works better if you've got thin jeans. And then using the button and the zip, I stuffed it. And I've got a cushion now with pockets. And it's a lovely cushion. And it worked really well as a book cushion, you know, where you can pop your phone in and you can all sorts of things. Alternatively, you could do that in 2 halves and you've got 2 bags. That's the other thing. So never ever throw a pair of jeans away. I digress. So that is another fabric you can use. I've shown you fleece. T-shirt might be a bit on the thin side for, this is a sleeve of a t-shirt. It might be a bit on the thin side for your draft excluder. It will show all the lumps and bumps, but it is good if you want to use it for your hand warmers and you're not too worried that they won't be a regular shape, because you've already got 2 seams sewn there. If you cut it across there, you've got a square and you only need to sew 2 sides. So that does help. And again, t-shirts that you maybe got stain on one bit, or you maybe it's caught on something and there's a hole in it, don't throw it away. There's so much usable fabric there. If for nothing else, if you cut t-shirt fabric into thin strips, you can pull it and it makes really good cords. I used it a lot in lockdown to make stretchy cords for masks because they were soft on your ears. You can use them as drawstrings in bags. You can even join them together and knit with them. So I think I've talked enough, and I'm just going to say a few hellos if that's all right. Hello to Carol. Carol's a regular, and she's saying about using a pair of fancy knitted tights as a draft exclude. That's a good idea. If you've got those tights that you buy in a moment of madness that have got animals all over, or and then you maybe put your finger through the top of one of them, which is what I'm always doing. Hi to Ruth. I think Ruth might be new to us. She's in Northern Ireland. What's the weather like in Northern Ireland? Hi to Hagir. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm glad you're all watching this morning. If you watch on catch up later in the day, drop me a message and say hi and tell me you're on catch up. And I think we're done. I hope you found this interesting and informative. I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet this year over energy use because so I made a plan. I've got a 5-point energy plan, which includes not using the dishwasher, which we're finding a bit, you know, it's not very good for your hands, all that dishwashing. Maybe I need rubber gloves. So as I say, today was aimed at keeping you warm and keeping the pennies in your pocket alongside your hand warmers. So I hope this has helped. Be like me and never throw anything away, which does mean you've got a house full of bags of rubbish, but I reuse a lot of it, I'll say. I'm going to get on this afternoon and make a whole load of pocket hand warmers that a client's asked me to make for them because she knew I was doing this, and she said, I can't do them. Will you make them for me? So that's what I'm going to do this afternoon. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you, everybody who's commented. And I hope you all have a nice day. I hope it's as nice weather as it is here. I'm going to warm up my pocket hand warmers and take wee Jack out for a walk now. And it's been lovely seeing you, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.